The mines in Stardew Valley are simple enough. There's a slow and constant difficulty curve, and your progress is saved every 5 floors, so eventually, you'll be able to power through it. The Skull Cavern, on the other hand, is an entirely different beast. The enemies are much stronger than you've ever encountered before, and progress resets completely every time you leave the cave. You can't just bang your head against the wall and expect to be successful. You need a plan. Luckily, I've got a few to spare. We'll be going over 3 different strategies: a quick setup run, a completely decked out run, and then a pacifist run for people who don't care for combat. Generally, the goal of these runs is to hit the 100th floor to finish your challenge. But also, since so many upgrades and buildings are locked behind iridium, the secondary goal is to get as much iridium as possible. Before we go over these methods, I want to give a few tips that can apply to any run. First, your weapon. This isn't as important if you plan on doing the pacifist run, but you'll still want a way to get really annoying enemies out of your way. We could talk about enchanting and all that, but since the Skull Cavern comes before Ginger Island, I'm going to assume that you don't have access to it. And the same will apply to the rest of the video. If it comes after Skull Cavern, I'm not going to recommend it. The best weapon you can possibly have is one of the galaxy weapons. To obtain these, you need to bring a prismatic shard to the middle of the 3 pillars in the desert. There's a variety of ways to find a prismatic shard, but it's really rare no matter what. Some of these ways include a 25% chance to pop out of one of these rocks on floors 100 to 120 of the mines, a 0.4% chance from any Omnigeode, or once you reach the bottom of the mines, every monster now has a 0.05% chance to drop one. If you get the Galaxy Sword from the desert, you'll also have the opportunity to buy the Galaxy Dagger and the Galaxy Hammer from the Adventure Guild. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this because the sword works just as well, and if you're tight on money, there's other things that you can spend your money on. But if you like the hammer, that works as well. It has a great special attack that can get enemies off of you in a pinch. The dagger's a little bit more niche since you have to get a lot closer to enemies. It's more risky. I personally wouldn't recommend it. Like I said though, these are rare, so the next best thing is the lava katana. This will cost you 25,000 gold in the Adventurers Guild, but it'll always be there once you finish the mine, so there's no need for a random drop. It also comes with a +3 to defense and weight, which increases the amount of damage you can take, and increases the distance enemies are knocked back when you attack them, making it a great defensive option. If you're looking at that price and thinking that's a bit too much, don't worry, I have a third recommendation: the Steel Falchion. It only costs 9,000 gold, it's a bit weaker than the lava katana, but it also has a sizable speed buff of 4. The attacking speed of a weapon is really important in the Skull Cavern, where it's not uncommon to have 5 enemies all coming towards you at the same time, and if you can keep attacking, you're good. So, here's all the weapons that I would recommend from best to worst. My second tip is on the day of your spelunking, use a teleport to the desert if you can get it. If you use the bus, you're gonna have to wait until 10:10 a.m. for Pam to get to the bus, and while you can speed her up by standing in the way, you'd still be wasting the first 3 hours or so of your day. You can buy a desert warp totem from the desert trader for 3 Omnigeodes, and the entire recipe can be bought for 10 iridium bars. But since this is a guide for the Skull Cavern, you probably won't have any iridium yet, so just go with the Omnigeodes. On that same note, I would also recommend bringing a farm warp totem so that you can stay in the cavern as late as you want without having to leave 2 or 3 hours early to get to bed. And my final tip, staircases. There's 2 ways you can obtain these, either through crafting with 99 stone or trading with the desert trader for 1 jade on Sundays only. I'd always have at least 10 of these on a serious run. Sometimes you'll enter a room that has a bunch of enemies and you just don't want to deal with it. Get out of there. With that out of the way, let's talk about our first 2 methods. The reason I'm talking about them at the same time is while they will have a different inventory setup, you still will be doing the same thing once you enter the cavern. So first we'll talk about the quick setup. I designed this to be able to be done with supplies that you should have sitting around, where you won't have to grind for a while to set up. And as a quick disclaimer, this isn't going to be as effective as the other 2 methods just by design. There simply isn't as much setup involved. So here's the inventory we're gonna have. The only tools you need to bring are your pickaxe and weapon. Anything else is just taking up space. For quick access, I keep my main food right next to these. This food item can be literally anything as long as it doesn't have a buff. In some of my early runs, I tend to have a huge stack of salmon berries or blackberries from foraging bushes. Other good plentiful options are cheese, eggs, or bread. Time stops when you eat, so the amount it heals isn't important. Just make sure that you have a lot to sustain you throughout the entire trip. Then you're gonna have 2 buffs. If you're not aware, you're able to stack buffs from 1 drink and 1 food. If I were to make a tier list of which buffs you should bring with you, it'd look like this. Speed and luck are king, attack and defense will help you with combat, mining will at most reduce the amount of energy you use, and everything else is pointless. The main reason luck and speed are on top is because your biggest enemy is time. Faster movement speed is self-explanatory, but luck increases your chances of finding a ladder among many other smaller effects such as geo drop chance, treasure room chance, and much more. Here's a list of all of the food items that can provide these buffs. Of the drinks, I'd recommend either coffee or triple shot espressos for the drink buff, as they're easy to get a lot of. And for food, I can really only recommend one thing: pumpkin soup. The materials are easy to get a hold of, just a pumpkin and milk. And not only does it give you a +2 luck buff, which if you don't know is great, it also gives you a +2 to defense, which will help with longevity when fighting monsters. The unlock condition for the recipe for pumpkin soup is getting 7 hearts with Robin. And if you want enough buffs to last you the entire trip, you'll need 3 pumpkin soups because each one lasts 7 minutes and 41 seconds. Let's hear it for pumpkin soup. I guarantee every single one of you have been sleeping on it. The last thing I'd consider a must-have for this expedition are bombs. Swinging your pickaxe can be slow and clunky, and not only that, you probably don't have an iridium pickaxe yet because you might not have gone into the Skull Caverns. With bombs, you'll be able to knock out a ton of rocks all at once. Cherry bombs and regular bombs can still be useful, but obviously mega bombs are the best. I don't want to put an exact number on these since you'll pretty much want as many as you can stand to buy from the dwarf. We'll say 20 mega bombs minimum. If you really can't afford that, then regular bombs will work fine as well. And while this won't be part of your inventory, I do want to briefly talk about rings. This is more subjective since there's such a wide variety of ring effects that can all be beneficial. Personally, my starting go-to would be a glowstone ring, which is craftable at level 4 mining, and the ruby ring, which is buyable from the Adventurers Guild. This will give you the glow effect, the magnet effect, and a 10% damage boost. There's a couple of other rings that can be good that are much more rare, such as the crab shell ring for defense, the ring of Yoba to prevent you from dying maybe, or if you're actually insane, the lucky ring, which can be obtained by panning, is absolutely the best in-slot item. Additionally, if you have a little bit of iridium lying around, you can also make the iridium band, which combines the effects of the glowstone ring and the ruby ring. So, this is what I would call the bare minimum. Yes, it's still a lot, and that's because floor 100 isn't meant to be a pushover. If looking at this inventory makes you sick, the Pacifist route may be for you, but that's for later. Now, if you want the ideal inventory and don't care about the money required, there's a few things I'll add. First is the Master Slingshot with explosive ammo. These are practically shootable cherry bombs that are great for blowing up a group of rocks. If you can pull it off, a magic rock candy from the Desert Trader is absolutely divine. It is very unlikely you'll be able to get one because you need 3 prismatic shards to trade in. If you do though, you can enjoy a +5 to luck, defense, and attack, and a +1 to speed. And I also guess there's a +2 to mining, but that's an insane buff to have. We'll also slap in those 2 warps and 10 to 20 staircases and you're good to go. Not much more you can do than this. All right, our inventory is ready for when we wake up tomorrow. Let's head to bed. All right, it's the big day. First thing you want to do is check the luck and, oh. All right, today's the big day. First thing you want to do is check the luck of the day and make sure it's either good or great, indicated by either a pyramid or ideally a star drop on the TV. Similar to the luck stat you're buffing, this will also give you a higher chance for finding ladders. Since you went to sleep with your inventory already ready, I'd attend to any chores on your farm that you absolutely need, and then immediately pop the desert warp totem. We're gonna head straight to the cave, pop your drink and food buff before going in, and start. Now as we start, here's a few facts about the Skull Cavern that you should know before going in. To descend to another floor, there's ladders just like the mines, but you'll also find holes. These holes can send you down anywhere from 3 to 15 floors at once at the cost of some HP, and the HP that you lose will be equal to 3 times the amount of floor skip, giving a max of 45 HP lost. Jumping down a hole will always leave you with at least 1 HP, so don't worry about dying from it. As for getting iridium, don't worry about looking for it in the early floors, as the farther you get into the cavern, the more common they are. If there happens to be one right next to you, yeah, sure, go for it, but don't walk all the way across a floor to get one. Like I said, time is your biggest enemy. As you go through each floor, your priority is going to be, number 1, blow up any large groups of rocks. Number 2, knock out enemies. Each has a 15% chance to drop a ladder or a hole. Then number 3, blow up smaller groups of rocks with cherry bombs or explosive ammo. And then, finally, if you're out of options, number 4, start mining the rocks individually. Now, of course, there's an infinite number of situations that can be thrown at you as you enter each floor, so the priority may change. I'm not going to tell you to ignore the 5 enemies coming straight for you. Speaking of enemies, let's go over the ones you'll encounter. Serpents. I wouldn't be surprised if these are the things that made you feel the need to look up a guide in the first place. They're fast, they deal stupid damage, and they can easily swarm. These are always a high priority kill since not only are they a nuisance, but they also have a chance to drop spicy eels, which is a great food for luck and speed buffs, and extra bombs. Their hitbox extends a little bit farther than the front of their sprite, so you can swing a little earlier than it would appear you could. Purple slimes. Similar to all the other slimes, they have the exact same movement, except now with a wild amount of health. I tend to go after these as well since they can drop both iridium ore and iridium bars. Be careful about getting hit because the slimed debuff, which slows you down, can make you very vulnerable to attacks from faster enemies. Big slimes. These move similar to other slimes, just a bit slower. When they're destroyed, they have a 75% chance to produce smaller purple slimes, and each small slime will have a chance to drop a ladder and will be clumped up for easy slaying. Armored bugs. These are essentially just an obstacle. They can't be killed, but they just go back and forth on the same path. There's an enchantment that you can get from the forge that allows you to kill them, but it's not even remotely worth it. Their drop table is disappointingly boring. Mummies. These work on Zelda Stalfos rules. They need to be knocked out and then bombed. They're not a huge threat because they move really slowly. I find it effective to knock them out near rocks and then use the slingshot to finish them off, clearing out the rocks and the mummy at the same time. They do have a special drop called the Curiosity Lure, which increases the chance to catch rare fish in any given area. Lava bats. These only appear from floors 1 through 50. They act pretty much the exact same as any other bat, and there's nothing too special about them. Iridium bats, on the other hand, replace them on floors 51 and beyond. In addition to dealing twice as much damage as their lava bat counterparts, they now have a nearly 100% drop rate for iridium ore. Carbon ghosts are one of the rarer enemies. They move exactly like previous ghosts and have a 99% drop for omnigeodes. If they hit you, they'll teleport away to avoid retaliation, so avoid that. Last but not least, pepper rexes. These will spawn almost exclusively on prehistoric floors. They take a lot of hits to take down, and the general strategy is to bait them into breathing fire, then quickly getting to their side and hit them while they're locked into attacking. They have a 10% of dropping dinosaur eggs, which can be incubated into your coop to give you your own little dinosaur. So other than those few exceptions, use your best judgment as you go down these floors. Try to keep busy as you wait for your bombs to explode so as to not waste time. Keep an eye on your health, and I cannot stress this enough. If you hit half HP, it's time to take a second to heal. Enemies can bring you down quick. And use enemy drops to your advantage. Solar essences can be used to make more bombs, and dropped food can save your life, so on and so forth. Once I hit floor 40 to 50, that's when I start trying to find iridium. It should be much more common there than it is at the beginning of the cavern. And just to show you an example run with the minimum inventory, I did a run, and this is how far I got. Now for the easy way out, the Pacifist Run. I'll be honest, this method is simple, but it'll take a long time to set up. I think I can sum it up in one word. Staircases. Now I'll use a few more words. As I've mentioned before, jades can be traded for staircases at the Desert Trader on Sundays. Luckily for us, we have a way to get a steady, unending supply of jade. crystallariums. Known for just sitting there and earning you passive money with diamonds, little did you know they have other uses. Each gemstone that can be put in takes a different amount of time to duplicate. For jade, this only takes 1 day and 16 hours, and we can go ahead and round that to 1 every 2 days, unless you plan on watching it constantly. It doesn't sound like much, and to be honest, crystallariums aren't cheap, but if you have a line of, say, just 5, that's around 75 staircases passively in a month, which is essentially a free trip to floor 100. In my honest opinion, the ease of use of this makes the wait completely worth it. And think about it. You get these staircases to get deep in the Skull Cavern, and you'll get more iridium to make more crystallariums. And you'll get your staircases even faster to go down and get even more iridium for more crystallariums. It's a never-ending cycle of the easy life. Of course, I wouldn't recommend going in with only staircases. You'll still want a weapon, pickaxe, emergency food, and bombs to collect iridium, but that's about it. Just descend as deep as you want. I usually don't even pay attention to my surroundings until I hit floor 70. If you see some easy to grab iridium, get it, and continue staircasing down. Avoid any combat with the staircase, skip those nasty layouts, this floor just feels racist. Who cares? Thank you for watching all the way through. I hope this helped you, let me know if it did. And if you have any extra tips that you think are also important, please say it down in the comments. All information is useful. Thank you for watching, I'll see you in the next one.